Hello, everyone. It is Monday, October 20th here on thewolverine.com's YouTube channel if you're watching live or in the podcast feed after the fact. Happy Monday Night Football. Sorry to any of our Florida-based Michigan fans, listeners. This is a Pro Detroit Lions podcast, so we are repping the squad today, of course, in the lead-up over the next hour or so to the game. A lot to get to this week with the Michigan Wolverines. We will talk rivalry week opening up. Michigan State will play under the lights at Spartan Stadium on Saturday, under the lights again next weekend at home against Purdue, which don't even get me started with that. But that's what's on deck this week. We talked to both Dusty May and Sherrone Moore today. We'll start with Moore and then go into May's press conference. And then, as we do every week, we will take your questions to end the show. But, fellas, welcome back. Productive weekend. Good weekend.
Yeah, a great weekend, honestly, and could be better tonight if the Lions win. So it's always great when you have a Michigan win and a Lions win. So here's hoping. But what a nice bounce back win for Michigan. And we kind of said, okay, we're going to find out a lot about what this team is made of in this game. It was really a fork in the road game, even though Sherrone Moore wouldn't admit it. And you expect them to beat Washington at home. Washington's a good team, not a great team, and certainly not a great road team. So to get that one. Fantastic. Now it's up to your next biggest challenge, which really, believe it or not, is Michigan State. Still a rivalry game, bad football team. However, you've got to win that game. Have to, flat out. And Michigan State looked like they had a little bit of life when they came out against Indiana anyway. They didn't look dead on arrival like they did when they played UCLA. So I fully anticipate Michigan's going to win that game. But regardless, huge win for Sherrone Moore in the program on Saturday.
Yeah, great weekend. Great weekend of college football in general. There were a ton of good games. Night slate was really good. Late night slate was even crazier with Florida State going down to Stanford. What is wrong with Florida State? You got coach firings on Sunday. It was a crazy weekend in college football, but excited to get into it. And a reminder to people out there can get a super chat in and skip to the front of the line and get questions in for us. We appreciate all the people that do that.
Yeah, Sunday is becoming quite the hot seat coached lamb to the slaughter type of day.
Yes.
There's going to be, 12, 15 pretty good jobs open by the end of the season, we think. Michigan has a chance to perhaps force a team to open another job this weekend if it can really handle its business against Michigan State. We'll talk about all of that, of course.
Billy Napier got fired after a win.
I know that was the most morose post-win press conference I think I've ever seen.
He said he's going to go get him something good to eat, and then he got fired the next day. Now he can eat whatever he wants. He's got a huge buyout, or a big buyout at least. But craziness.
Well, as Biff Poggi showed us a few weeks ago, the true key to post-game happiness is a pint of coffee, Haagen-Dazs, and a Cuban cigar, and then maybe a trip to the hospital. So we will get into all of it as we are every week. We are, of course, brought to you by our friends over at HomefieldApparel.com. Listen, Homefield, I'd have bought my wedding suit from them if they had one on sale. Their stuff is that good, but we're coming up on colder weather games, a home night game next weekend, a home road game if you're making the trip in this weekend. It's probably going to be a little cold, so you're going to need to get your long sleeve stuff. You're going to need your crew necks, your hoodies, your hats. Got to keep your head warm as well. Homefield Apparel has all of it, and they've got one of the best collections. Can we click on that Paul Bunyan tee real quick here? That's a new one, I think, ahead of rivalry weekend. Looks like they have a Michigan State Paul Bunyan rivalry T-shirt over there, which is pretty awesome now. That might be the next one that gets added to the collection, of course, but a lot of great stuff over there, whether you're a Michigan fan, Michigan State fan, a fan of one of the directional schools, a fan of a rival school, whatever it is, Homefield's got you covered. And their Michigan collection is as good as any other collection they have on the site. So head on over to HomefieldApparel.com, gear up for yourself, start gearing up for family and friends ahead of the holidays. You know how shipping can get, so take care of your business now. Head on over to HomefieldApparel.com. We are also brought to you every show we do by ourselves here at the Wolverine. Use that promo code UM1 for 2 months of access to our site for a single dollar. It is what Clayton Safey has for years now been referring to as the best deal in America. So that's going to take you almost into Christmas time now, speaking of the holidays. So take advantage of that today. It's a great deal. You're not going to regret it. I promise that. All right. Well, Michigan I feel like last week we used the term pivot point 100 times. We used the term must-win game 100 times. Michigan won the game, and they did so. Obviously, it came in the form of hitting the accelerator late. It was a 3-3 game well into the third quarter. I forget what the exact time stamp, or I'm sorry, a 7-7 game well into the third quarter.
Like 147, I think, AB. Really deep.
Yeah, so
it was 132 when Cole had the pick.
Yeah.
I think, something like that.
So 60 minutes of football, push comes to shove. You take advantage of a couple turnovers. I thought one of the most impressive things, you get 2 turnovers in back-to-back drives. You turn them into 14 points both times. That's huge. That's a mature response. That's putting your foot down and making darn sure to get out of that game with a victory. So incredibly impressed with that. We'll talk about some of that. We have talked about some of that over the weekend, but we'll lead with Clayton first. Your thoughts on the win? And really, it felt like a bigger moment than I think even some in the fan base were giving it credit for, and maybe even some nationally as well. This truly was a pivot point type of game.
Well, if you win, then it's not as big of a win. Like a loss, it would have been, that was the biggest game and he lost it and all this. And so then I have to give it credit when they go out and win that game, because I said a week ago that it was the biggest game of Sherrone Moore's tenure outside of last year's Ohio State week, because that's always going to be the biggest. But when you're sitting here in year 2 with 2 losses, and if you lose to Washington, then you're thinking, all right, they're just going to lose to anyone who's somewhat decent, right? But they didn't, and they won by 3 scores, and they were able to do what they needed to do late in the game, to your point, and really put that one away and make it pretty comfortable at the end, to the point that you have a bunch of backups in there, and Jacob Oden's making an interception for Michigan. So you love to see all of that. I know a lot of it's pretty self-explanatory, but I was asked this on Sirius XM this morning. What went wrong against USC that went right against Washington? And I said, everything that went right against Washington kind of went wrong against USC, right? I wouldn't say they shut down the screens from Washington, because there were a couple decent gains, especially early on in the game. I'm thinking of one specifically to Jonah Coleman, but they limited those pretty well. They really limited the run game. They shut down Damon Williams' legs outside of 1 or 2 scrambles. You think of 1 third down early on in the game. But other than that, they were fine. Offensively, they finished some more of those drives with points. I still want to see them finish more of them with touchdowns. You settle for a field goal attempt. You settle for a field goal. You turn it over on downs, things like that. And Sherrone Moore has really harped on that since the game ended. But all in all, the offensive performance was really clean. And you got to give the coordinators, I think I come out of this game thinking of Chip Lindsey and Wink Martindale and what both of them did coming off of the USC game in their response. I mean, Chip Lindsey probably called his best game. Bryce Underwood had his best game at quarterback for Michigan, 21 and 27 with 3 or 4 drops, right? 230 yards, 2 touchdowns, made good decisions outside of one time that he ran out of bounds instead of threw it away. But, just the simple stuff was good. But then you saw the high-level stuff, like the throw on 3rd and 11 to Deacon Tonelli, who said after the game the ball wasn't supposed to go to him. Maybe he meant the play. He wasn't the number 1 option, and the dig from Andrew Marsh was. But then Sherrone Moore said today that, that throw was intended for Deacon Tonelli. And as you watch it over and over, it seems like it was. So, I mean, that stuff, like, there are not many quarterbacks in the country that can do a lot of what Bryce Underwood did in this past game. He's still growing. There's still some things he's got to clean up, but I thought he was really good. I think that Jordan Marshall was able to step up with Justice Haynes out, and he was just one of many that stepped up when their team needed them. And Michigan was able to show its depth. And I wrote down the following players that really stepped up with, guys that are not guys who started the season as starters, but have emerged and either played a big role or made a big impact in this last game. Jake Guarnera, Zach Marshall, Deacon Tonelli, Jordan Marshall. Andrew Marsh was a backup at the beginning of the season. You saw Blake Frazier come in at left tackle, and I thought he played really well after he got bulldozed once or twice. In one of the times he got bulldozed, Bryce Underwood gets out of there for good yardage. But guys on the defensive side, Cole Sullivan is a backup. Jimmy Rolder began the season as a backup. You had 2 backup safeties in there, Mason Curtis and Jaden Mangum. I think Mangum technically started the year as a starter because he opened the first game, but you still had those guys in there. man, what an effort from, not just, the main guys that you're used to watching week in, week out, but everybody in one of the biggest weeks of this tenure. So hats off to them.
Yeah, it was 7-7 at halftime, and I thought Lindsey had called a good game. I'll be honest. There were some execution things, a couple of drop passes that if those don't happen, you might get a couple more scores. And in addition to that, you have another missed field goal by Dominic Zavada, who needs to step up. And I think he will, guys. He's probably just going through one of those things that kickers go through. He'll be okay. We know he's an elite kicker. So last year was almost a fairy tale season. I think he'll be better. So, but I left halftime feeling like remember the 2nd and 19 play where I thought they should have called timeout. It didn't look like they were set, and maybe called timeout and not only try to get off the field, try to get a stop, but get off the field. And instead it leads to a Washington touchdown. So it came out to the point where you were really disappointed that it was 7-7, but you felt like they were probably the better football team. But it was really going to depend on what happened on that first series of the second half. And the defense came out, I believe, got a 3-and-out, if I'm not mistaken, which was absolutely huge. And then the defense continues to hold while the offense is moving the ball, but just not scoring. So to me, it was really great the way they responded late, and Cole Sullivan making the difference with the biggest play of the game, right? It's funny. We were all complaining first about the spot that led to the punt, and why did they not challenge it? Sherrone Moore said today when I asked him that question, he said, I wanted to. They told me I couldn't, basically shut up and stay in my place. And so instead they punt, but then I think it was maybe 1 or 2 plays later that Cole Sullivan gets that pick, biggest play of the game. And then they used that as really a rallying point. So 3-score win against this Washington team and holding them to 7. It's funny if you go through a game thread on our site at thewolverine.com and you watch Wink's got to go. And they had like 200 yards in the third quarter. They've scored 7 points. Washington has. And I'm like, this is not a game of perfect and you're going to give up big plays. If you look at the Ohio State Washington game, the script was extremely similar. A lot of their yardage came on 5 or 6 plays. Michigan did the same thing to them. I think that's going to be the key against Michigan State too. Do the same thing there. But overall, an impressive win. And I said, this is the one. But now, the next biggest game really is Michigan State. And even though they're not very good, you give it all back if you don't win that game. So I have no doubt they'll be prepared for that one. This has been a hit or miss road team under Sherrone Moore. And but this is going to be, there are going to be a lot of Michigan fans there on Saturday, guys. And this is not your typical road game. You're going 50 miles down the road.
I think what I was most struck by in that game was Bryce Underwood's performance and the offense, because I feel like I've been saying for a few weeks that they're close to a breakout, and we didn't see it on the scoreboard Saturday. We're still, I think, talking about the olive in the jar, right, Clayton? Where I think there's a game coming soon where they're going to put up, 40 points on one of these teams, maybe a couple of these teams they play in the next 4 weeks. It could happen as soon as Saturday, but maturity was the word that came to mind when you go back and watch how Bryce Underwood played. He was taking what the defense gave him. He's taking the checkdowns. He's taking the quick passes to Jordan Marshall and Zach Marshall, who had a hell of a game, I thought. Andrew Marsh looks like a guy, someone asked before the season if the guy that would be most targeted by Bryce Underwood was on in his career was on the roster yet. And I said, I'm not sure, but I think Andrew Marsh is, just by virtue of being here already, might be that guy. Now he looks like a guy where they are developing what could be a special chemistry between the two of them. But after the game, I called Underwood's performance, like, to bring it back to the Lions. Everything always does come back to them somehow. It was kind of Jared Goffian, where, there's obviously Bryce has crazy arm talent, a couple good throws, but just the poise, the comfortability with taking the easy stuff. I was really impressed by that. And, the offensive line being what it is, still not the cleanest pockets to step up into. I walked away feeling like, that's a 24-point output. But this team, again, I feel like took another step towards being what I think they can be offensively.
No doubt. And to me, not to butt in here, Clay, but it's funny. You look at his numbers, and 25 and 27 is what he should have been at least, which is crazy. Those are crazy numbers for anybody, let alone a true freshman. but I love the poise he's showing. I love where he's going with the ball. He does have to get a little bit more touch on the shorter ones. I know people are going to argue about that, but there are a couple times looks like he's trying to impale somebody from 5 yards, and you still got to catch the ball, but maybe take a little bit off it. So, but I love watching him play. We are so spoiled, guys. This is legitimately not even close the best freshman quarterback that's ever played at Michigan, and that includes Chad Henne. But his skill set's just ridiculous. So think about what it's going to happen, guys, when they get better up front and they get maybe another receiver or two to get Hogan Hansen back, maybe another elite tight end in there. Then you're talking about an offense that's going to be really, really hard to stop. So fun to watch. And again, now you got to win these next 4 games. There are no excuses, guys. This is it. It's like John Jansen told me last week, Michigan's former All-American. Every game is a playoff game now, and these are bad playoff teams that you're playing. Northwestern's improved, but you're going to be playing in front of a ton of Michigan fans at Wrigley Field. Maryland, you're going to be playing in front of a ton of Michigan fans. That's maybe somewhat dangerous because it's a trap game before Ohio State, whatever, but got to win these 4 games, give yourself a chance. Imagine, guys, how electric that will be after Thanksgiving if you're going into Ohio State with a chance to share a Big Ten title, or at least to make the Big Ten championship game, rather.
Yeah, if you win the next 4, it's a good season, in my opinion. You can make it a great season if you beat Ohio State and get into the playoff, or maybe even you find yourself in Indy for the Big Ten championship. But, with the schedule you had, right, if, John Borton wrote about this, I think after the game, about how if, and I'll alter it a little bit, like, because he said if Michigan would have played Paycheck U instead of Oklahoma, then they're 6-1, and you're looking at things differently, even though they had to go down to one of the toughest places in the country to play. And Oklahoma was playing really good football back then, and John Mateer was healthy, and they were coming out as one of the best teams in the country, and they still are, a top 13 team. I think that's where they stand right now. If you play Boston College, like Michigan State did in their Power 4 game, and they win in overtime in East Lansing, and now you look at Boston College, and Boston College is 1-6 and 0-4 in the ACC, then you're also 6-1, and you look at things differently. So the schedule is what it is. It's lighter in the back half. You have to take advantage of that for it to matter, and Michigan has a chance to do that. But going back to Bryce, just think of this too. The first play of the game was just kind of a weird throw, came out of his hand weird. So if he should have been 25 of 27, it was really like 25 of 26 after that play. It was like as good as you can play if you're a freshman, right? You're not going to be able to do everything out there, but the scrambles were good. The one where he got out of there and there was all sorts of pressure. The 3rd and 11, there was a bunch of pressure in his face thanks to Giovanni El-Hadi getting beat. So I just think that if you can get him better during this stretch of games, and then he's a different player come Ohio State, you got a shot to do whatever this year. Not win it all probably, but you at least be in the playoff where, Ohio State was in the playoff last year. Everyone said this program's dead and it's going to be all Tennessee fans up here. And they ended up, going on an unbelievable run. Not saying Michigan's going to do that, but you get in that 12 team and there's so much parity in college football. Look what, Kirby Smart said it over the weekend, that we can't win by as much as we did in these games as we used to. They have to win different ways now. They win by 8 against Ole Miss, a team they would have killed, even though Ole Miss is good, a few years ago. But it's not the same. The talent is more spread out. So, yeah, you're going to take a loss or two, but you can't freak out. You have to regroup. And Michigan did that last week coming off the USC game. Now they got to keep the momentum rolling.
Playoffs changed everything, right?
Yeah. The portal too, and NIL. Like, I can transfer freely now, and I have people calling me, telling me they're going to pay me money to do so. And then the playoff as well. And it's who's healthy, who's hot at the right time. What matchup did you get? Look at Penn State. Look at Notre Dame. It's just different. It's a different sport. It's college basketball. It's the NFL. Kirby said it's the NFL on Saturday night.
Yeah, it's not quite the NFL. Where, like, the NFL, like, on a given week, the Kansas City Chiefs could play a terrible game, and in the vacuum of that 1 week, it doesn't matter because the
refs won't let that happen, Anthony.
Well, the refs won't let that happen, and we don't need to get back into that either. But you have to you got to be able to flush these losses quickly now. Yeah. Because look at Alabama with their opener against Florida State. Yeah. Florida State's now lost 4 in a row. They're 3-4. They're talking about paying Mike Norvell's buyout now. Michigan, the USC game. that was alarming just because it looked so much like a lot of these other losses have in the 20 games that Sherrone Moore's been there. But you can have the result. You don't want to have the result, but if you have the result, you better be able to flush it and get after it quickly, because every week's kind of its new unique challenge now in this new college football. So any other thoughts from over the weekend before we get into Sherrone Moore?
I'm just happy for them. All the talk about finger pointing and what I said on the message board, I said, you can hear about all this locker room stuff, and it's because of the internet era and everything else, things that you would not have heard 25 years ago, that because they were behind closed doors, guys leaving the team, guys getting into fights, so on and so forth. But then if you rectify it during the week and you win, it all goes away, and you didn't know about it. You weren't any wiser for it. So I said, hey, it's going to depend on what happens on Saturday as to where this team is. Don't listen to all the crap, the distractions in the building. You don't want to hear it. Maybe a couple guys were held out for it. There have been some rumblings that maybe some of these injuries weren't exactly injuries. Maybe some guys were held out. We haven't confirmed that, but would it surprise me? No. And all that matters is winning, guys, and going forward. They looked together to me, and they looked happy at the end of the game. That was a happy locker room. These guys look still like there's some chemistry there. So, and it keeps the excitement of the season going now. It's unbelievable that if you look at the schedule compared to next year's, what they have an ability to still accomplish here with a young team. And by the end of November, guys, this team is not going to be quite as young. You're going to have a lot of guys with games under their belt. Blake Frazier, in my opinion, is going to keep that left tackle job. He's going to run with it. And you got a couple young guys, him and Jake Guarnera, by the Ohio State game, are going to have played a lot of football. Andrew Marsh now is already becoming a standout at wide receiver. He's going to have a ton more games under his belt. So I'm excited. Just get to that Ohio State game at 9-2, guys, and watch those guys pee down their legs a little bit. This team looks a little bit different, but just get there and give us a chance here, and that'd be fantastic.
Just watch it snow or watch them get the flu, or that's what you mean by that. But no, I mean, you bring up a great point about just like the internet era. And me and Anthony were talking about this at the game on Saturday, that even the exhibition basketball game on Friday night, which I know we'll talk about, you didn't used to see those. Those were secret scrimmages that, they ended in 100-100 tie. I was joking about that. And then it's funny, the game ends up going 198. I was like, it actually might be 100-100 tie here, because they weren't going to overtime. So, but then you watch it and you're like, oh, well, Michigan turned it over 20 times. They didn't get rebounds, although they didn't have their big men. They couldn't get a stop. I mean, literally could not get a stop. There were a million fouls. It was clunky, whatever. But it's only because we saw it. Like, I'm not going to draw big conclusions from it, because we saw it. We wouldn't have seen that in years past, and we wouldn't have thought anything of it. And it would have been November 3rd. We would have showed up to the first game, and then you start making your judgments, and then you have 30 whatever games, hopefully 40 games to judge. But it's just funny, like, access, can kind of cloud your judgment of what's going on, or your view, or your perspective. So if you're just watching on Saturdays, right, it was brutal for Michigan one Saturday ago. Great for them the next Saturday. Again, just keep the ball rolling. Now, Sherrone Moore, I almost said Jim Harbaugh, but Sherrone Moore talking about getting complacency out of there, making sure that they stay with that urgency that they have. Because like you said, Chris, this playoff time here came early, unfortunately, because you lost 2 games, but it's playoff time, so you got a shot.
And you have a young roster now where you get to build, not only you're building equity in the now and what you could be by the time that last game rolls around, but there were a couple times where you're looking on the field Saturday and going, there's a lot of guys out here right now that aren't just only going to be here next year. They'll probably be here in 27 too. Some of them even into 28, that's incredibly exciting. And the only way to learn how to win and to win, learn how to win these big games is to win them, to go out and play well and give it your best effort. So let's move into Sherrone Moore's Monday press conference here. The work jacket was back. He ran it back today. Now, he said a lot had to do with the fact it was it's a little cooler outside. It was about 43 degrees when he got to the building around 5:30 this morning. But the jacket is back. He heard about some of the memes. He thought they were funny. A couple of key things here right off the bat. It sounds like Justice Haynes is going to practice this week. They'll see what's going on with him. Some of the other injured guys, or if we want to play the card here, the injured guys, it sounds like are all back in the mix to play this week as well. Other than Evan Link, which it looks like they may have dodged a bullet here. There's a chance that they could get him back. It doesn't look as bad as feared when he was carted off the field with a leg injury. So some positive news on that front. What did you fellows think about what Sherrone Moore had to say today overall?
Yeah, I asked about Rayshon Benny, my third question, which got me a fine from Dave Abloff, Michigan's SID, for asking the dreaded third question in a sequence. But that was the one that kind of worries me, right? I really want that interior line to be at full strength against this Michigan State offensive line. If you can get some pressure from the interior line, we remember Rayshon Benny absolutely dominated from that position against Nebraska. And I think he has the ability to do that in a game like this, especially an in-state game where he's got, those feelings, right? He was committed to Michigan State at one point. So I think Justice Haynes will be back. He was working with the ones he was planning on playing. We know that for a fact. Was actually running with the ones in practice at times before the game, actually in warmups, and they decided to hold him out. So, and it was fine because Jordan Marshall played a fantastic game. I was really glad to see that. I was really happy for that kid, one of my favorite kids on this team to cover. So, but with him back, I do think you'll see Rod Moore back in there. Brandon Hillman is hit or miss, guys. And I'll be honest, I think there might be times when they're better off when he's not on the field. I hate to say that, and I'm not ripping on the kid, but I think they're more fundamentally sound with other guys in there instead of him. You can still use him at times, but I think other guys playing in there isn't necessarily a bad thing. Obviously, we don't want him to be hurt. So, but overall, I think they're getting healthier. I think you'll see both tight ends back. But to do what they did with all those guys missing too, fellas, last week, that's something that a lot of people overlooked as well. They had a lot of injuries. You're down to your third tight end, and your third tight end is out there making fantastic plays. So to me, if you get Justice Haynes back with Andrew Marsh's emergence, if you got your tight ends back, I think this offense should really have a big day against Michigan State. And as long as they don't get too aggressive defensively, and I'm not one of those guys that says Wink Martindale's Don Brown 2.0. I don't think that's the case, but as long as they don't get too aggressive and they make Michigan State drive the field and beat them, I think they're really in good shape as long as they're healthy, which it looks like they're going to be.
Yeah, I thought the jacket was a good move after a win. I thought it was funny, and I also think that anything you do after a loss, right, then everyone's going to pick it apart. And then you win a game, and then it's cool and funny and whatever. And I didn't pick it apart last week, but that's how it goes. And the internet made some incredible memes that he said that he would like to see some of them if the media rounds up the top one or two and shows it to him. And I said it was the astronaut or the chef's outfit that I think are the best too. But and there were some crazy ones as well. But yeah, I think that they're back on their winning ways and can kind of build from this. You're really thin at tackle in the meantime. If you do get Evan Link back, that would be great for depth at the very least. You play the best guy. And, he saw it last year, right? He got hurt, and then Gentry goes in, then he got hurt, and then Link at the end of the year ends up being the guy who was, that they went with and that was the most healthy. But Frazier can step in there. Brady Norton's now worked at tackle in the spring. They moved him to guard in the fall. He played tackle at Cal Poly. He's undersized, but you are really thin there, including him and the rest of the tackles they have. They all combined for 24 snaps at tackle in the FBS. So you have virtually no experience. And I think a lot of teams around the country, right, every week on our preview shows, what do we talk about? This O-line's banged up. This guy's a 17-year-old, or this guy was backing up a 17-year-old. This left tackle, was a backup, and now he has to play. They moved this guy from the right side of the left because this guy's hurt. There's no depth anymore in the country in college football, especially on the offensive line, because if you're good enough to start, you're probably getting paid to do so somewhere else. But Michigan has no depth at tackle. You move Norton out. It's a big concern. I think if somebody else goes down, Rod Moore's not missing this game, in my opinion. I don't think Justice Haynes will miss this game, especially because he was a game-time decision anyway. But yeah, Chris, you make a good point. Rayshon Benny, they said we'll see if he practices this week. And then you were kind of down Trey Pierce. I think he played 10 snaps. He started the game, came out for a long while, and then played at the end and made a huge TFL at the end along with Jimmy Rolder. But he was hurt against USC and was limited in this game. So hopefully he'll be healthier for Michigan's D-line's sake. So, yeah, I mean, It's kind of the way the college football season goes. You lose one, you gain a couple more. You're going to lose someone else this weekend to something hopefully minor, and whatever. But also worth mentioning Derek Moore. He hasn't been talked about yet, but he's playing really good ball. I think 4.5 sacks the last 4 games. 2 sacks in this past game, the forced fumble on 4th down that was essentially a turnover. So they've got guys that are starting to step up. And it's funny, you lose a game and then no one's playing well. And I was guilty of this last week too. And then they win and it's like, oh, this guy did this and this guy did that. But that's the difference in winning and losing. It's the most important thing.
It is. And I'm with you on Derek Moore. I mean, I think that there weren't a ton of NFL scouts there on Saturday. I think only 2 teams. I think the Eagles and Pats were there. But there's going to be a lot of teams that'll flip on Derek Moore's film from that, from not just this game, but the last few games. And
did you hear so Jason Avant on the radio broadcast right after the Derek Moore strip sack, he chimed in from the field and said, an Eagle scout just told me, like, oh, I'm watching Derek Moore. He hasn't done anything. He hasn't done a ton. He gets to the quarterback, but he doesn't finish. And then Jason Avant's like, he's going to make a big play soon. And then he literally gets the strip sack right there. So, yeah, those scouts they're noticing him, and he's proven even some of the scouts wrong a little bit.
The Eagles better notice him because their pass rush has been terrible this year. So,
hey, Brandon Graham's coming out of
retirement.
Yeah.
You just say it, Jinx. Buy me a Coke, Clay.
Yeah.
So. How about that? Yeah, he was Michigan's honorary captain over the weekend too. Maybe that was the seed of all of it. Maybe there was a connection there. I doubt it. They got him on speed dial. Let's see. Anything else? Sherrone Moore said his first introduction to the rivalry was he was the tight ends coach in 2018. And that was the year, of course, if you do the math, Devin Bush had his rampage at the Spartan Stadium logo. That was a heck of a day too. He also
they tried to run those guys over.
Check the film. BS. Check the film. It's on Fox. We checked the film.
What was Harbaugh's line? Yeah, Coach
Antonio was 5 yards behind
it all, smiling.
Yeah, there you go.
So that was a classic day. That was a weather delayed game too. I think it rained that day. It snowed that day. I remember, and I'm not one to take the pot shots like this, but I remember at one point during the weather delay, the wind was swirling through the bowl that is Spartan Stadium, and I literally saw a tornado of trash make its way up towards the press box. I've never seen that anywhere else. Only at Spartan Stadium. But other things about Michigan State, they said wide receiver Nick Marsh is a big, strong, physical guy who can make 50-50 catches. Throwing the records, the old cliche applies this week. Throwing the records out, they don't matter in rivalry games. Michigan doesn't seem like it's going to overlook this one. They're attacking this week with urgency. All of those types of things. I guess any thoughts on setting the table for MSU and what this week could mean?
It's everything for Michigan State because they have nothing else to hang their hats on this year, their helmets. Because if you can beat Michigan, then even if you go 4-8 or whatever, or 5-7, you still have bragging rights over your Michigan fan friends. So, and John Smith can say, hey, I won that game. Right. And we saw what you can parlay that into. If you're Mel Tucker, for example, you win a couple of those games and you get a $90 million contract that you flush down the toilet because you can't keep your hands off yourself. So it's going to be that it's the entire season. And what gives me a little bit of pause here, 2 things. I thought Michigan State showed a little bit of life that they didn't show against UCLA. I thought they were going through the motions in that game. Against Indiana, they came out and played hard at least. So I don't think you're going to see them roll over here. They aren't good, guys. They can't run the ball. They have a hard time stopping the run. It's going to be tough for them to match up, but emotion can carry you in this game. And I remember a few, 1993, 17-7 game where Michigan had Tyrone Wheatley and they held Michigan in check. It was 17-7. Michigan was terrible. It's usually a tough game up there. I know that they suck. Don't get me wrong. All these people in the comments, they do have a good quarterback when he has time to throw, and they have some decent receivers. But more than anything, Michigan, I think, is better in the trenches. I think that they clearly have an offense that can, somebody said, well, they better score 35 or more in this game. Look at how everybody's scoring. I'm like, well, this is not an offense that's done that, but they can put up points. I think they can control the clock. I think they can move the ball on this defense. Just don't turn it over. Play good, solid defense. This should be a good 2.5 score win, fellas.
In Jonathan Smith's press conference today, he was asked a question with the premise that a lot of Michigan State fans say they would go 0-11 and then have the one win over Michigan and go 1-11. And they would be fine with that season. And Jonathan Smith said, well, and they said, can this game make your season? He said, make our season. It can change our season because of where we're at. And they've lost 4 straight, and they only have 1 win over a Power 4 team, and it was in overtime to a team that's 1-6 now. All these things. But, they understand that the Indiana game's over, and they're just moved on, and they're going to kind of operate this week as a fired-up team that, I think will have a little more confidence just because it's, feels like a different type of season because this is their season. So, Michigan's got to be ready for that. And I saw Doug Carr say it in his feature with John Borton today. Getting off to a fast start will be important to kind of get that building, to, losing some confidence and get the Michigan fans a little bit louder and things like that. So that'll be important. Of course, it's a cliche, but, when you're on the road in a situation like this where you're going to have a lot of fans there and it is their season, that would be really important. But bad Michigan State teams don't typically upset good Michigan teams. We don't know how good Michigan is. We do know Michigan State is bad. So, typically the Wolverines pull these out, even if they are weird, even if it's 2016 and Michigan was much better in 16 than they are this year. But that was a game, that was just kind of weird, even though Michigan State ended up 3-9 and there are all sorts of examples. I think that Michigan State's going to give them everything they got. They do have some individual talent over there, so you got to be ready.
Oh, and this was a game last year too, where for a quarter and change, MSU completely owned them in the trenches, and they're not good up front on either side of the ball. So I think a fast start is huge.
That was bad on bad, though. But yeah,
that was bad on bad. At least we
that
don't know how
here.
good. Here's the thing: is so often, and it's said with kind of a derogatory tone a lot of the time, where, oh, be careful for Michigan State. This game's their Super Bowl. If you're Michigan, you better prepare for this game like it's your Super Bowl, because you don't get to play for any of the things that last week's win just set up. If you lose to this team, like your game against Ohio State isn't going to mean as much. The playoff is probably dead from there. And of course, there it is. Someone with the Super Bowl comment in the chat there. But at the end of the day, I mean, this could get weird enough with what I do think could hurt Michigan at times is I think MSU has pretty good speed at wide receiver, and Childs on his best day can be a very good quarterback. If you're playing with your food a little bit and you've only got 14 points in the third quarter or 17 points in the third quarter, I think you need to hammer this team, or else you might open yourself up to some rivalry weirdness. So we'll take a look into the matchup, of course, later this week. But I think that's what's on the line, is keeping Paul home first and foremost, but making sure that you keep intact everything that you worked so hard to correct from that loss 2 weeks ago.
100%. And that's all that really matters at this point. Just win. I don't, like you said, what's Clay's comment? The best wins are by what? How many points?
1 or more.
1 or more. So, and that's all that matters. I don't give a damn how it looks. Just get in, get out, win it, and move on. You got 4 of those, in my opinion. I don't care how it looks. You want to improve. Yeah, don't get me wrong. You still have to improve. A team like Michigan State can rise up and play well against you. Just win. That's all that matters.
It is kind of the time of year when it's, in September, you kind of grade the wins, especially in the non-conference when you're playing a lesser opponent, because you can't just go off whether or not you won or lost. It's kind of that time of year. It's getting a little cooler. You win by 1 or more, and you move on to the next week. And every game is its own entity, especially as we talk about, earlier in today's college football. It's so different week to week. One team looks like this. One team looks completely different the next week. So, yeah, I mean, win by 1 or more is much as that statement is, somewhat of a joke and, whatever, but it is true. And it's that time of year where it's the only thing that matters is getting out of there with a win.
All right. I think that'll do it for football. We will, we have a couple football questions, of course, but we will be back Thursday to preview Michigan State in full after we take a little deeper dive into the Spartans this week. I want to spend a couple minutes on Michigan basketball. We talked about them a little bit earlier. They play an exhibition game on Friday against Cincinnati. They lose 100-98. I don't think Dusty May was all that upset about it because he said the goal was to put some things on film, get some answers, test some things out. Now, once they made the comeback that they did and they fell short, that's disappointing. But overall, I think, Clay, your point from earlier holds up, where because it was on TV and because we all knew it was happening, if John Rothstein had tweeted out during the Michigan football game Saturday that he was hearing that Cincinnati beat them by 2 points in a secret scrimmage, all of us would just kind of brush that off. But because it was streaming, because the gates were open, a little bit of an overblown reaction at times. But of course, they were down to Daymara and Morez Johnson Jr. Dusty May speaks to the media today, says the goal for the next 2 weeks is first get those guys healthy, but also finally start. They haven't really installed a bunch because those guys haven't been there. There's been illness. There's been, a number of different things. Of course, they have this exhibition on Saturday against St. John's at Madison Square Garden that sadly is going to overlap with the football game. So we'll be dialed into that as much as we can be. But Dusty, it feels, I wouldn't say there's frustration. I just think there's an eagerness to kind of get his whole team on the court and see what they have before this season starts 2 weeks from today.
Yep. And again, they went deep into their bench. They played guys that they aren't going to play. A couple of concerns I had, a second ball handler, right? Who's that guy when Elliot Cadeau goes out that you can really count on? And do they have enough of them? Cadeau got to the line a ton. Thanks, DJ Carsonson, for making that a 2.5-hour game, by the way, the official. But that was ridiculous. But Trey McKinney, if he plays a quarter of what he could have, better than he played on Saturday or Friday, they would have won that game. He's going to be much better than that. So they got to get better on the glass. He was disappointed about that because I know, speaking to people who've been in every practice, that they are really emphasizing the physicality for the Big Ten and rebounding. Yaxel Lendeborg, I thought that was an interesting quote. He said he was 31-12 and I was disappointed in him, is what Dusty May said. And I thought that was really telling about the expectations they have for him, because he was really good at times, guys. It was ridiculous when you were watching him thinking this guy should be in the NBA, right? So this is a good basketball team. It's going to be a great basketball team. I have no concerns about this. I expect that we are going to see a lot more guys play again on Saturday night, but really the ones that really count are the ones that start a week from next Monday. So, and that's when we'll be watching more intently.
Yeah, I can't keep my eyes off of Yaxel Lendeborg. I would say that, but then I'd have to say pause after. But he's so fun to watch. Like that was my biggest takeaway from being at the Combine back in May in Chicago, watching him in those scrimmages. It's like, this is just so fun. Like, he is in the mix for every rebound. He's making great plays, passing the basketball, and that's what he likes to do the most. He can also score it. He can dribble the ball, for a guy who's 6'9" and, more of a big. But then Dusty says, well, no, he's a guard. I mean, with his skill set. And then you saw his shot. I think he only hit one of his threes, but another one was in and out from the corner. He's going to, he passed up a couple of them. I think they probably want him to take those. He was not a very high volume shooter last year, but you just see that he was really good. And as Dusty said, he could play even better, which is really, really exciting. And that's a great defensive team that they played. Now, Cincinnati was playing different lineups. They didn't do a scouting report at all. Wes Miller said they didn't even look at who Michigan had. Of course, he knows, but didn't want his team to worry about that. They just wanted to work on themselves in practice and then go to Ann Arbor and play the game. So their scouting and their game plan would be better if it were a normal game too. So you have to add that caveat. But that's a team with a bunch of size, a bunch of athleticism. They were pretty impressive, and they were picked 11th in the Big 12. I would say, and of course now I'm going to react to an exhibition game, but don't be surprised if I bet on them November 3rd, whoever they play. But I didn't take anything away really from the defense outside of some miscommunications on switches because they had no rim protection. As Dusty said today, Will Cheddar loses 30 pounds and then I make him play center in an emergency situation. It's funny. Like if you're Will, you're thinking, all right, down weight. I'm a better shooter. I'm handling it better. Okay, here we go. It's a new year. I'm going to play the 3. And then he's like, oh no, sorry. You're playing the 5 first time out. But the small lineups work to an extent, but they couldn't get stops or rebounds. But I didn't take much away from the defensive side. So it's something to put on film and to grow from. And, they're playing a hell of a team on Saturday night. That is going to be exciting. That will be on the iPad up in the press box. We'll see how much I actually glance over at it during the Michigan football game, but we'll watch it afterwards.
I guess I should ask right now. I mean, how are we going to have dueling game threads going on? Like, how is that going to work?
Absolutely.
We'll do rock, paper, scissors for who moderates.
For an exhibition, though? All right, I'll be on it, guys. I'll take care of it. You guys, don't worry about it.
Yeah, we had a game thread.
We might have. I think we have some folks on the board who are basketball, not necessarily football fans. They might appreciate that.
People are going to be watching both. I mean, like, we're working, so it's hard to not be so dialed into the football game. But there will be a 30-minute span, or actually 45-minute span. Official kickoff time for the football game is 7:45. So there'll be a 45-minute span, probably most of the first half, where you can watch basketball. We'll be watching warm-ups as well. But no, if you got two TVs or you got a couple screens, people are going to be watching both, as long as you paid for dumb BTN Plus. But that's another thing.
Yeah, don't cancel it yet. You have one more exhibition game.
No, you have regular season too.
Or maybe somebody will throw it on YouTube and everybody will be
Bob, we don't advocate for that around here.
I do. That's how I was watching it back.
Yeah.
Any other hoops thoughts before we get to questions? We might actually get to wrap a little early tonight.
Dusty May is a stud. Just watching him and everything that he was talking about, when you listen to
Pause.
him and John Beeline, it's just unbelievable. Yeah, exactly. Pause. The guy's, he's something else. So there's not and I'll say it again, there's not a coach in the country I would trade him for right now.
It was incredible hearing him. He's just so honest and transparent.
Yeah.
Yaxel drops 26 points in the second half of a game, and Dardanir wills them back to an exhibition victory. And Dusty May's up here Monday talking about how his practice habits aren't quite good enough, and they're going to keep challenging him. And by the way, haven't said this yet, Yaxel Lenderberg, a preseason All-American, it was announced today. So he is a heck of a player. It's excited to see how he's going to grow and whatnot. So what do you think? Questions time?
Let's go.
Do it.
All right. We're going to start on the message board today. We're going to go to QED, our buddy Chris from Germany. He actually has one for basketball, one for football. We'll do both. We got the time here. He says, with such a huge team, this is basketball now, are we concerned about opponents playing small ball?
That's a fair question, but they think that these guys can guard smaller guys. Yaxel Lendeborg. Wasn't it Dusty saying that he thought that Yaxel could guard point guards better than maybe fours or fives?
Centers.
Centers. Right. So I thought that was extremely encouraging. That means that you can. I'm not worried about him. And then when you've got the length of Amara, for example, if you put somebody small out there, he's going to erase a lot of stuff. If somebody gets by him, he's still with his length alone, he's going to erase some stuff. So I'm not all that concerned. However, I do think it's a fair point, and I think it's a good question.
No, it's going to come up at some point in a game this year. But the thing I think about Michigan is that they can go small too at times. And we even saw it the other night, their best lineups offensively, they couldn't get stops. Their best lineups offensively in that second half where they scored 64, which is insane. And a lot of it was at the free throw line. 23 of those points were, was with those small lineups where you're kind of running and gunning. And Elliot Cadeau, man, we haven't brought him up yet, but he's special in terms of getting where he wants to go on the floor, getting into the, collapsing the defense, making passes. If he would have had more than 7 assists, if guys would have hit some of those open shots early on. But yeah, they can go small, and then it's kind of that give and take that it always is. Like, they're going to have a tough time guarding Michigan on the other end if Michigan's having a tough time guarding them. So it's whoever has the bigger advantage there. But this is a chameleon type of team that I think can play a lot of different ways. The only biggest concern with personnel wise I see in being big is the ball handling that Chris, you brought up earlier. Just not having that guy like Roddy Gale. He had eight turnovers. It's an exhibition, but how do you have 8 turnovers? So, and LJ wasn't really healthy and only played 14 minutes. They didn't even want to play him that much, but they do have some guys. They got to develop that though, I think. But yeah, it's a great question.
I said I was going to bring up the football question. He asked any thoughts about whether players who were surprise outs on the injury report were more program or disciplinary decisions. We sort of talked about that. I don't know that we need to get into it, but
well, they certainly left it open for that speculation, right? With
yes,
not explaining. It was asked if Rod Moore, was it his knee? The Sherrone said he didn't answer that part and just said it was a game time decision, right? I mean, that's what they did. So I'm not sure.
Josh Jackson, a $9.99 super chat, says, I'm leaving Illinois for East Lansing Thursday morning with a few MSU fans. Cannot wait. Go Blue. Well, first off, God bless. You're going to spend 2 whole days with MSU fans. God bless you. No, many of them are good people. We know a lot of Spartans in our life. So hope you enjoy the trip, Josh. Thank you for.
They're good people on both sides. Yeah.
Oh, God.
Let's not go there.
We'll say this. You know what? As long as you don't talk, it's like politics. As long as you don't talk Michigan State when you're together, right? Then everything's fine. So
that's why you talk about the Lions instead.
Exactly. But it took you know what? It was an unhealthy hatred when Mark D'Antonio was here. He took it to a different level. The guy's got a cold soul, and he admitted that when it came to this game. It's still just a game, dickhead. So you're supposed to enjoy it, and I really have a great time with my Michigan State fan friends in the summertime. Just don't talk about it, and you'll be fine.
Josh, have fun. We'll see you there. Hopefully, thanks for watching the show.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I enjoyed the car ride there.
This is from Steve Morrison, real estate broker. He says, "Who steps into Blake Frazier's spot?"
Brady Norton, unfortunately, and I don't mean that. I'm not ripping on the kid, but I just don't think he's ready to play tackle at this level. So, but he's the backup now, and as Clay said, you don't have any depth anymore. This is it. You cannot afford another injury on that offensive line. So, hopefully, everybody stays healthy. Norton was actually competing for that spot in the spring, though, and there was a time where he was playing it pretty well. So, I don't think it would be a complete catastrophe, but certainly not ideal.
Yeah, and then you have. At least you have Nathan Afobe because you got healthier at left guard. Guarnera has really taken that right guard spot and ran with it. So you do have a backup. You had a little bit of a surplus in today's college football with 2 guys, Norton and Afobe, who have started games this year at guard. So now you can move Norton. So that's part of it. Afobe being solid at guard helps there. So you have a guard backup. You have 1 tackle backup who was playing guard all year. And then Guarnera is really the center backup. So if something happened to Crippen, you'd have to move him over probably and put Afobe in. So you have a little bit of a path there, in all those scenarios. But, man, it is thin.
It is thin. We'll see if maybe the next couple of weeks you're able to get a guy like Ty Haywood ready to play. I don't know. But right now you're about as thin can be there. Wolverine Casual has a $5 super chat. I was actually just going to read his question from the board, so we'll take this one instead. He says, what's the reasoning behind the rally team dynamic and not starting your starters and ending drives early? Our rotations are very, and he says, rotatey.
It's a fair question because we have questioned it up there too, guys. Like, okay, you've got the momentum now. Get your guys out there, get a 3-and-out, get, maybe 6 play-and-out drive or something like that. And it does seem like it – when they get momentum, they are putting a lot of different guys in there. And I know that the objective is to keep guys fresh and for the end of the games and stuff like that. But there are times I don't understand it. I'm not a coach, obviously. But fellas, I think it's a valid question. And hopefully against some of the better teams or in closer games going forward, stick to the guys, the starters, and let them do their thing.
Yeah, I ranted on this for like 2 minutes on last week's Monday show, so yeah. I guess that's what I have. But I will say this: a casual fan, like Wolverine Casual says he is not asking this question. So you're not a casual Wolverine; you're a Wolverine diehard.
I won't answer on it. It's one of the things that drives me the most. That drives me more crazy with Wink Martindale's defense than the blitzes that people say he sends too many of, and some of the coverages. It's especially, there have been a couple times this year where Michigan has gone on like a 6, 7, 8 minute drive. You go down, you score a touchdown. And then again, it's no disrespect to the guys on the field, but then your edge rushers are Nate Marshall and Dom Nichols. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. If you're doing it, if there's a situation where, offense goes 3-and-out, you got to send your defense right back out there. I get it. But I feel like they've done this on sustained drives. And it's kind of pre-planned regardless. And I'm not crazy about it. And again, Wink Martindale, Michigan's coaches have forgotten more about football than I'll ever know. But at the same time, it does look a little silly. We will go to another super chat here from Michigan Go Blue 1234. Last call for those, by the way. I have this super chat, and I want to take one more question. We'll take this one
chat
here.
up there too.
What's that?
We got another super chat up there too. Go Blue 982.
Oh, well, we'll get to his first. Someone unstarred that. We'll go. Sorry, we'll get yours in a sec. We got all these numbers here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 982. Go Blue 982 says for $5. Samaj Morgan had another drop on Saturday. Not to be mean to a youngster, but what are they seeing him to keep playing him? Guys, they don't have another slot receiver.
Right.
The guy that you have out there starting more, playing more is Andrew Marsh, who's played very well. But now you get to the depth chart where, okay, if you're going to take Samaj Morgan off the field, you're putting Channing Goodwin out there, who has almost as many drops. So
Anthony Simpson, who dropped 7 passes at UMass last year, and is dropping balls in practice as well. If he were better, he would be out there. So yeah, and Samaj has made some plays. Let's give the kid some credit. He's done some good things too, right? So he is who he is, and you're going to take the bad with the good. And as Josh Jackson said in his $4.99 super chat, I'm starting a GoFundMe and going to. That's not cool, man. I love you, brother, Josh, but you know what? This kid's given his heart and soul to the team, and he's done some good things here. He's moved the chains. He had a huge play at Nebraska, remember, on a 3rd down where he kept the drive alive. So is he the best receiver in Michigan history? No, but you know what? Give him credit for some of the good things he does too. But damn it, I would like to see him catch the ball a little bit more, and I would rather run that 4th and 1 play to somebody else who is going to catch the ball.
And just to read it for people who are only listening, he says, I'm going to start a GoFundMe and going to take the money to pay Samaj to transfer. Yeah, mean comment. But I will say,
I take it back. I hope your drive to East Lansing sucks now.
And I hope they all have gas too. All right, continue.
Well,
man,
the drop on the 4th down was critical because it was 4th down. It wasn't necessarily an easy catch to make, even though it was close. It was right at his helmet. He's kind of turned outside. It's not super easy, and it was a bulleted pass. So I think the big frustration with that drop specifically is that he had dropped 5-6 others earlier in the year, and then you drop another, and then it just stacks on itself. So it is what it is. But yeah, they have been playing Channing Goodwin a little bit more at slot when they don't want to put Samaj in, but he might be their best option there. And they do have some good creative plays to the slot receiver. So it's just a product of not having anyone better. I mean, that's just what it is. That's what football is when you're on a team. If you're the best guy, you're going to play. If you're not, someone else will. And right now that someone else hasn't stepped up.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't even say has the yips. Why people always they ask every week. We answer it every week. It's here. It's on the post-game show. You can do some different things with him. The reverses, the screens. That's why he's playing over other guys. And other guys have to be better as well if you want someone to supplant him. So I always just defer to the depth chart. Who is on the field is a referendum of who is not performing to get on the field. So we'll take this last one from Michigan Go Blue 1234. Pretty general question here. He says, thoughts on Bryce Underwood as a QB so far this year?
Love him. Everything I expected and more. Yeah, he's had some issues. The line hasn't been great. Receivers have dropped a lot of balls, and yet this guy puts the ball where it needs to be. He's made some mistakes, but he's everything I expected him to be and more. This guy is only going to get better and better. Love what he brings to the table. I want to see more of his legs. I asked people to grade him on the message board. I think the overwhelming sentiment was B+. For his age, I'd even go A- probably because he's just turned 18 years old. But I love this guy. I think he's the best Michigan freshman quarterback I've ever seen, and it's not close. Chad Henne.
You could argue it's A+.
Yeah.
Given what's around, like if you think if Trevor Lawrence is the best ever freshman quarterback, or at least, in this era, and it's tough to compare, back to Rick Leach or whatever, in a different style of football, like you could argue it's there. I mean, there are some things, it's not like every play is perfect. So A+ would be kind of weird to give him, I guess. But to me, it's in the A range for a freshman. And it's to the point where you're watching him, and when he doesn't make a play, you're not thinking, like a better, or like, you're comparing him against other quarterbacks, not just freshman quarterbacks. So you're not thinking that, a more veteran player would have made that. It's like, no, It just Bryce Underwood didn't make that play. And then you watch him and compare him to the quarterbacks on the other side. I mean, he's much more physically gifted, pretty much in every situation, maybe outside of John Mateer, because that dude's a freak too. But Bryce is going to be there, when he's an upperclassman. So I've been impressed. To me, he's averaged 7.9 yards, average depth of target. So he's throwing the ball down the field, and he has 3 turnovers, and 2 of them are picks. So really, the fumble had nothing to do with that. He gets into tight windows. He doesn't get flustered. He works really hard. I mean, he checks a ton of boxes as a guy who is really good now, but then you can see it. He's going to be really, really good in the future.
I'll take this last comment here from GoBlue982. For $2, this says, I'm just concerned they all drop so many balls. The one thing I'll say is that coming out of that first bye week, and you've got a second one coming up now in a couple weeks, you have found something Donovan McCauley has been kind of a constant. I'd love to see them get him the ball more, but Andrew Marsh has not dropped a pass this season. He had a play in the opener where if he turns around for the football, he probably scores his first career touchdown then. Those you have found something with those 2 guys, and I hope that the target share continue to kind of is heavily in their favor, and then the tight ends as well, no matter who's out there, whether it's your top 2 or your 3 and 4, those guys continue to get involved. I thought that was something that helped unlock another level of the offense this week. That's going to do it for us tonight. Appreciate you guys for being here on a Monday. A lot to get to, a lot of ground covered. We are in dual sport season now, so of course, always fun discussing both football and basketball here. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, use that promo code UM1 for 2 months of access to our site. For a single $1, it's going to get you onto the message board so you can ask questions. It's going to get you behind the paywall to read all of our great premium content over there. So yeah, take advantage of that deal today. For Chris Ballas, Clayton Safey, our producer Megan behind the scenes, I'm Anthony Broom. Have a great week, everyone. We'll talk to you again on Thursday.